Few of us, very few of us, ever really make a mark that, well, we can say is something special. Dave Kleiman was one of those people. He worked in digital forensics, and he taught. He worked with many people, and he educated. And he gave up his time freely. Dave Kleiman, he worked with many different groups, and he was trusted. There's a reason for that. Even when he was in his hospital bed towards the end, he still gave webinars. He offered all that he had, and then he gave more. Dave was a special man. Dave was someone who gave far, far more than he ever took. Dave never shied away from offering more and more. He didn't say no. What Dave did was help people be better, learn more. He did it in a way that showed his own strength. He showed his own virtue. I'm proud to actually call Dave Kleiman my friend. I've known Dave for over a decade now. I've had arguments with him. I've had debates with him. But no matter what, and through it all, Dave's been a friend. When I've been down, he's been there. When I've needed someone, he's been there. And all I have to say is, I'm sorry I wasn't this year, Dave. I'm sorry. I thought you had more time. At 46, it's too young. At 46, it's a loss. It's a great loss. For someone like you, Dave, you are worth so much. At the end of the day, there are few people who offer so much to the world. Dave is one of these people. No matter what, Dave Kleiman, he worked hard. Even when he was in hospital, even when he was suffering in pain, Dave was there for other people. He was humble. He wouldn't want any sympathy. Dave wouldn't take it. He shied away from that. But at the same time, Dave Kleiman was empathetic. He understood. And he cared. Not just for himself, but for everyone. That's why he did what he did. Because security, trust, and even forensics, it's all about others. And Dave was all about other people. Dave wanted to make the world a better place. And he wasn't here for a long time. But in that time, Dave made the world a better place. He made my world a better place. I'm proud to say Dave Kleiman was my friend. I'm proud to say I knew Dave Kleiman. And I say, I'll miss you, Dave. You were my friend. And I'll miss you.
Craig Wright joins us from Sydney, Australia. He's a researcher at Charles Sturt University and an expert on how governments can collaborate to secure cyber systems. Charles, thanks for joining us. In a nutshell, the 45-second answer here, how can governments better collaborate to secure cyber systems, especially when it's the governments that sometimes attack each other?
Well, the first thing they've got to consider is it's really an economic attack. When we're looking at most cyber war type situations, it's really cyber espionage. It's not cyber war per se. There are individual engagements, and it's really coming down to sharing information so that we're not spending the same amounts of money on similar things. There are a lot of easy attacks out there, and there are a lot of easy defenses, but many people don't do them. Now, our problem is that we're talking infrastructure that is in corporate and private hands, and at the end of the day, making corporations protect their networks better isn't something that you can easily do. It has to come down to an economic benefit.
And we heard a few minutes ago that when it comes to the United States and China, accusations have been flying from both sides. The U.S. charged 5 Chinese military officers for allegedly hacking U.S. companies. I want you to listen to how the Chinese Foreign Ministry responded and get your response on the other side.
The Chinese government and army have never engaged in cyber spying. The United States' fabrication of the story and obstinate charges against the 5 military officers have seriously violated the norms governing international relations.
The U.S. has accused China of intellectual property theft, while China accuses the U.S. of state security threats. So what's the difference?
At the end of the day, what you find is that China is really a smaller nation in economic terms. It's trying to grow and it's trying to gain the position that the US has. It wants to get that innovation, and a simple way of doing that is to actually copy what other people are doing. Now, in the past, that's been something that the American government did 100 years ago against Britain, that the Japanese government did, etc. Now, these are all ways of helping your own nation's companies, and it's nothing new. In this instance, of course, the Chinese are going to deny it, but many times it's not even officially sanctioned. These are things that are under the radar, that are paid for, but are overlooked. In the case of China, there are a lot of people hired by the PLA, the People's Liberation Army over there, that are engaged as defenders, protectors, and people to break in and test networks that are part-time. They are able to do this for the government, get paid, and then go out and also break in and steal network secrets, and then even sell them back to the Chinese government, so that they have some level of plausible deniability. At the end of the day, this is nothing that we're going to see go away, because, quite frankly, as we have more and more innovation coming over time, people are going to want to grow and expand into these new areas of growth. And it's just, once again, an economic effect.
Charles, we heard Nathan's story about the Stuxnet virus, one that has proven to be a tremendous setback for Iran's nuclear program, and it worked by exploiting the software that Iran used. Will this just keep happening as Iran installs new software?
It will happen everywhere, really. At the end of the day, any SCADA system that we find is vulnerable. We find most of the systems out there are quite old. We have a difference in how we do engineering versus computer systems. And in many cases, we still find SCADA systems, which are supervisory control and access systems, ones that run the water, the power, all of these things, running on old systems, things like Windows XP even, that haven't been patched in years, because people are afraid if they patch them that they're going to actually cause more problems. So rather than fixing a system, we actually have it at times left vulnerable. So because these are left vulnerable, they're open for people to attack.
All right. Craig Wright from Charles Sturt University, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.
My name's Craig Wright. I've been involved with cryptography for most of my life, way back from cypherpunk days, etc. My background is security and forensics primarily, but also did law and a few other things. I've been involved with Bitcoin for quite a number of years now, mainly as a researcher. I'm on and off sort of involved with Charles Sturt and other universities. I study, I research, I write papers occasionally, and basically work on weird and wacky things.
So did you buy any?
I've bought and sold many Bitcoins, yes.
Okay. What was the price when you came in?
When I first came in, there wasn't a price.
Okay. So you're talking about. All right.
And less reliant on trust. So I guess that I guess there's a lot of implications for moving between blockchains as well. So while the tools for analysing blockchains generally might be getting better, so are the anonymity tools, and so are the tools that make transactions easier to obfuscate, and also the tools for analysing between blockchains are going to have to get a lot better. I know that. But yeah, I've never really used any dark web services. I know Jonathan can talk because he analyses the data.
I've just spoken for 40 minutes. So I'm going to jump in first.
I guess the first thing, excuse me, I've just had a cold and my voice is a bit terrible, but I guess the first thing to think about is, from a criminal's point of view, who cares about Bitcoin? The entire Bitcoin economy covers, I think, 2 seconds worth of drug deals in the world at the moment, and shrinking. I can actually fund easily any drug deal I want using any other number of sources that are completely anonymous. Anything from large deals in diamonds, which happen, from bearer bonds to bearer shares. I mean, you can exercise the adoption of a credit card. I can, and I actually have, got a Panamanian bank account with a credit card attached to it. It's prepaid. I can hand that to someone and give them the PIN, and then they have $50,000. They can verify it, check it, and it's there. Why is that difficult? I mean, we're talking about this as if there's something new with money laundering in Bitcoin. In fact, it's actually more difficult to money launder in Bitcoin. I mean, I've done a few little exercises with the AFP who told me how hard it was. I went and took $34 million through the airport out of Singapore into Australia and back, and all this sort of fun stuff. And none of them knew. I did the Bitcoin bit, and none of them sort of realised what the hell it was or what to do with it. So at the end of the day, this idea about money launderers don't get caught because we don't have infrastructure to catch them. In fact, it's really easy to get around it with money. I mean, this idea of what we catch 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%, and I can do that 8 times, of the money laundering in the world with cash. The majority of money launderers use legitimate things. Anyone know how much Morgan Stanley got pulled up and fined for when they were caught actually funding terrorist deals?
600 mil.
At a zero. So that was a known one with, oops, we didn't realise this guy who was a Taliban guy and blah, 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 was passing $6 billion this year through our bank. I'm sorry, we'll pay the fine. And was that done with Bitcoin? So I believe the known bad economy at the moment is $193 trillion in cash. Anyone know what the size of the Bitcoin market is?
8 billion. Yeah, 50 million a day.
So are we going to help fund any of these things with it? No. So let's see, if we're talking a shipment of drugs coming out of somewhere like Costa Rica or wherever else, anyone been to Bolivia before? Ever been to one of these cafes where they sell you Coke with next to a beer? They're actually there, and they're open, and you can sit next. I've sat next to a cop in Bolivia, and while people were snorting Coke and all the rest, and they don't care because it's a national economy factor for them. I mean, the idea of all this stuff, what really matters is the fact that money laundering happens, and you can panic and go, oh, Bitcoin's a new way. Well, that's because it's a new thing called money. any form of measurement, any form of money, any form of value can be used. We talk about, oh, it's difficult to move gold. Anyone ever moved gold before? You don't physically ever pick up a piece of gold bar. You have an allocated gold certificate that says, I have this bar of gold, and it's stored in a bank, or a deposit box, or a vault. And you hand that piece of paper over to someone, and they own the gold. I mean, you might own little tiny bits, but if you're talking serious amounts, like a big bar that weighs 25 kilos and costs you millions of dollars, it never gets moved.
But you're moving the claim, not the asset.
You're moving the rights, yes.
Yeah, but the Bitcoin is the asset itself, not the claim.
Well, no, Bitcoins are not an asset. They're a digital ownership right. They're a right. They're not an asset.
But if you've got if you're giving someone a claim, they have to at some point presumably collect there's a counterparty risk, so they might not be able to collect that gold. You're handing them a claim on the gold. When you give someone a private key, you're giving them what's essentially a digital property right. It's not a claim on anything else. It's the private key. It's the Bitcoin.
What is a dollar?
Promissory note.
It's a promissory note. Money started as promissory notes. Bitcoin is a promissory note. The actual Bitcoin doesn't have any value. It was never designed to have value.
No, but it's not a claim on it.
It is.
What
is a dollar a claim on? Who can tell me what a dollar gets you? If you go to Treasury, what do you get from that dollar?
Yeah, promise to pay you $1. Exactly.
It used to be gold. It used to be a $25 gold coin would give you a $25 note. That stopped. No country in the world actually does that anymore. What we have is a promise to actually give you a shiny new dollar. You can take your dollar in there and get a new dollar. And they'll actually charge you for the privilege. There's a seigniorage, so you can swap your dollar for another dollar, but they'll charge you for it.
But they don't define a dollar either. It's just
exactly.
I think Tristan has a valid point, and maybe like the thing that distinguishes Bitcoin from the previous versions of what you're talking about is the lack of counterparty risk and the ability to transact over a communication channel. So all of the things that you've mentioned actually require in-person handing over of a note of gold or a suitcase of cash or a bunch of diamonds. Actually, the Bitcoin transaction happens.
Actually, that's wrong. You can transfer money internationally. You can transfer gold certificates internationally.
Who does it?
Digital.
But you do it.
You rely on trusted entities the whole time. So gold money.
That's true.
Gold money was fine until they shut it down.
No, but that's e-gold. I'm talking actual gold. E-gold's a different thing to actual gold.
But in all of your transfers, you're relying on trusted entities all the way through.
Yes, that's the secret. Bitcoin doesn't have trust. That's the difference. It's the only real change here from any other form of money is Bitcoin is distributed properly as a peer-to-peer, trust-free system. It's a money where we don't rely on government. And all money actually started without government. Most people don't realise that one. There is no form of money anywhere in the world that started because of government.
Yeah, just going back to this communication.
Well, this is really exciting for me because these men here and the gentleman that you see on the screen are just really some of my not only favorite men in Bitcoin, but just my favorite men. If I, if this was like our gang from the Little Rascals, I would want to be Darla, and I would want these guys to be our gang. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, and I'm going to ask that you would, say who you are. And I think we'll probably start with Dr. Craig Wright, who's on the panel behind us here, since he hasn't been introduced yet. And then we'll just go down the line. You have a microphone there, and I'll ask Edmund Moy, and then Joseph VaughnPerling, and Trace Mayer, and then Szabo to just introduce yourselves and say a little bit about how you came into Bitcoin for people that maybe don't know who you are and your relevance to the Bitcoin space. So, Dr. Wright, we're going to start with you. Welcome.
Okay. All right. I guess, first of all, I'm a former academic who these days does research commercially that no one ever hears about, which suits me very well. I basically work in designing protocols and doing a whole lot of things that people don't realise is actually possible yet. We'll be actually back to publishing papers again soon. I haven't been for a while. It's been a few years now, but I'll be going back to that next year.
But hold on a second. Do you who are you? What do you? No one here. Tell me who you are. Are you a computer scientist? Are you a miner?
I'm a bit of it.
You're a bit of what?
I'm a bit of everything. I'm a bit of everything. I have a master's in law from over here in Northumbria, in England. I have a master's in statistics, a couple doctorates. I forget actually what I've got these days.
That's a lot of certificates. And how did you first learn about Bitcoin?
I've been involved with all this for a long time. I mean, I try and stay. I keep my head down, but.
Were you a miner?
A long time ago.
A long time ago. Awesome. And right now you're in London. That's where you're talking to us from, right? Well, thank you so much.
Correct.
Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to then go to Edmund. Yeah. Can you hear us, by the way? All of us okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
The other day I saw you tweet something, and I think it was Bitcoin is a commodity. Did you say that?
I said money is a commodity.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't exactly sure if I remember that correctly. So can you elaborate on what you mean by that and how that relates to Bitcoin for you?
People argue about whether Bitcoin is a commodity or not. Now, it's quite simple, it is, but so is money. Throughout history, whether we're talking about gold or fiat itself, the value of exchange there is something that can have other uses. It's only recently that we've come into a unpegged currency that has no real relationship into anything. I mean, up until the 30s, we had a gold exchange standard, which most people don't even realise wasn't a gold standard. It involved less than 5% of the actual gold that was on the books in America was actually held. So there's always been a commoditisation of money. And in fact, it is the ultimate commodity. It's the exchange protocol that we use for about everything else. So Bitcoin is a commodity for the simple fact that money is a commodity.
Okay, and so I think I tweeted something back to, I mean, no one knows me to be provocative or snarky, so, but as you said, there's been a discussion over whether or not it's a commodity or a currency, and that's primarily been for the purpose of taxation and such. And I think I said something to the effect of, so it can therefore be taxed as a currency and a commodity, and you said neither. So how is it that you feel about, obviously it's a peer-to-peer currency and protocol that you don't want government involvement in?
I mean, that's looking at it too small. Obviously, unfortunately, not many people seem to have knowledge of assembly code or forth or anything like that anymore. And I listened to one of Nick's earlier talks, and he was talking about the limitations. But in machine code, there's none of these limitations. And in fact, we have a rather rich instruction set in Bitcoin. It's just not well defined yet. And then the next part is we have the Ethereum going out there saying we need to build a new stack because we can't loop. But no one seems to realize that Forth actually does loop. You have to use a separate control stack. It's not like a lot of code forms where you actually have a single stack. Forth and Forth-like languages use a dual stack architecture. So everything that we're talking about in derived contracts can actually be done directly in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin protocol. It's just going to take time for people to understand it.
Since you mentioned Nick, then I'm going to allow him to respond to that. You need your microphone though, so or the water.
No, I have not heard that opinion before. I've never heard anybody call the Bitcoin script Turing complete, and I don't believe that's accurate.
He just said you're wrong.
The difference is the script itself isn't. What you can do is you have in forth a control loop. So the looping function is separate to the actual loop, the script itself.
Yeah, I mean that's an esoteric thing. If it's not Turing complete, then it's not a general purpose language like Ethereum, regardless of
but that would assume that the only way of actually writing code would be to do it directly in a script that runs on the machine.
Okay, so do you have another option?
Well, this would be a good topic for you to write a paper on, because that's certainly an unconventional view you have. So.
And Joseph, did you want to comment to that as well, since you're a computer scientist?
Since you're talking about Twitter and additional opcodes, this is something that Garzik commented on, I believe,
Jeff Garzik?
A day or two ago, saying that a new opcode could be possibly done that would allow Turing complete to be done within Bitcoin.
I'm sorry, would you please a little bit louder and realize that I don't understand jargon at all, and so talk like we're talking to me here.
So a new
Make
script
it simple.
function that doesn't exist yet, a new opcode, could be implemented that would allow calls to a Turing complete language, Ethereum or not.
Did you hear that, Dr. Craig?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Okay, so Garzik on Twitter within the last couple of days mentioned another Turing complete language that could be implemented as a new opcode to make calls to and implement Turing complete functions within the Bitcoin script. So it doesn't exist today. Mm-hmm. It is a possible future. Who knows if it will occur? But both of these gentlemen are correct.
Wow.
I think everyone continues to think too small. I mean, the homomorphic properties of ECC basically mean that we can exchange a cryptographic key, a symmetric key, and encrypt documents, load those, store them as a function that we can relate to on the blockchain itself. But more than that, we can actually link it into things like IPsec, and we can build firewall policies that are transmitted because of purchasing a token. And by tokenizing all these things, by tokenizing access, we can then take our access via the blockchain, shared keys, and because the nature of ECC, we can actually have your public key by my secret key equals the value under point multiplication, point addition of the opposite. So my public key by your secret key, we can take a hash of that, use a deterministic function, and then we can actually find a shared hash that we can both recalculate. So if we're talking about things like access to websites, digital rights management, we have all that capability actually there. So the majority, I mean, we're still thinking it's just money. There's so much more.
My name's Craig Wright, and I'm about to demonstrate a signing of a message with the public key that is associated with the first transaction ever done on Bitcoin.
And who does the world think did that first transaction? What's the name associated with that first transaction?
The monkeyer is Satoshi Nakamoto.
So you're going to show me that Satoshi Nakamoto is you?
Yes. Some people will believe, some people won't. And to tell you the truth, I don't really care.
But you can say, hand on heart to me, I am Satoshi Nakamoto.
I was the main part of it. Other people helped me.
Why did you feel, though, that you had to come out, and why did you feel you had to keep secret for so long?
I would prefer to be secret now. I don't think I should have to be out there. There's nothing owed to the world where I have to come out and say, I am X, I am Y. I mean, no one needs to do that. It is my right not to say I did something. If I release a paper that actually benefits people, why do I have to actually take credit for it? Why do I?
Wouldn't you be proud to be known as Satoshi Nakamoto?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I have to bounce around in front of TV cameras.
You could say you've invented something amazing and that you want to say, I am the man who invented this.
I want to work. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, and that's what I'm going to do. And I don't work and invent and write papers and code by coming in front of TVs. I don't want money, I don't want fame, I don't want adoration. I just want to be left alone.
I mean, one of the stories that came out was that you were under investigation by the Australian tax authorities. Was that true, and is that anything to do with this?
No, I have companies that are under audit. The reason for that is we have told the ATO everything. We have told them about the tax issues and implications. We actually put in everything with the auditors. We were using KPMG and a number of tax lawyers at the time, and we had internal audit, and we supplied that to the tax office so that we could try and pay the correct amount of tax. And because no one understands Bitcoin very well, and no one understands it, the timing or anything like that, then it's still an ongoing matter. So we have lawyers negotiating how much tax I owe.
Because people assume that Satoshi Nakamoto must be fabulously rich. The inventor of Bitcoin must have vast stores of Bitcoin and therefore be incredibly rich.
What matters isn't how much I have, it's when I use it. Because I've got an asset class that has gone up in value, doesn't mean I pay tax on it now. I pay tax when it's deployed, only on the bits that are deployed, no more.
And are you planning to deploy, as you put it, any of that Bitcoin?
I've deployed enough and I'm happy where I am. I'm not looking for money, and this is one comment I want to make to people. I don't want money, I don't want help. And I'm categorically going to say this, and I'm making sure that things are being put in place with lawyers and whatever else. If anyone puts me up for awards or anything like that, I will never, ever accept a cent. Ever. If you put me for a Nobel Prize, if you put me for an ACM Turing medal, if you put me up for some honor, I will never accept a cent from any of you for anything.
Why now? Why have you decided to identify yourself as Satoshi Nakamoto?
I didn't decide. I had people decide this matter for me. And they're making life difficult, not for me, but my friends, my family, my staff. I have staff here in London, I have staff overseas, and they want to be private. They don't want all of this to affect them. And I don't want any of them to be impacted by this. None of it's true. There are lots of stories out there that have been made up. And I don't like it hurting those people I care about. So I'm going to do this once, and once only. I'm going to come in front of a camera once, and I will never, ever be on a camera ever again for any TV station or any media, ever. But you're assuming that access to all those signed messages is there. There aren't any signed messages other than the transactions on blockchain, so there's nothing to compare it to. I mean, your argument is cryptographically not correct. I mean, you cannot say a bad random, a single transaction, and that you can reverse the signing and obtain a public key, a private key, I should say. You can get a public key.
You can get the private key for one single transaction or from one single digital signature. What
with ECC in the particular thing? Show me the paper.
Well, it's quite obvious. It appears I've made it like in my public slides, so it's not
Show me.
science.
Show me or bullshit.
Okay, I can show you.
Show me where it happens or bullshit and walk. It's
a basic fact about ECDSA that if, for example, you have the source code of the random number generator and you have one single signature and the public key.
Where's the source code for that generator? The nonces I used were non-standard.
Well, that's the question. I mean, if from one single signature it is possible for the private key to be compromised.
Show me.
Can I ask, is there another method that you would prefer that would be more conclusive? You were talking about the PGP key earlier.
This is definitely a very interesting claim, and I'm not saying that this is not true. I'm saying that this sort of evidence is like it's interesting, but maybe we should ask.
One thing that I'm disappearing.
Yes.
I'm not doing this to get in the media. This will never happen again. You got this one thing. If you don't like it, fuck off.
Well,
you show me where. You don't bullshit me. I'm walking out.
I
don't give a shit. Show me now or fucking walk. Now or walk.
I can show you now.
I think we should all be less.
I'm going to open my slides because they are.
I think we should all be less
on the way.
Just calm down. I think
it's a basic crypto fact.
Okay, I hear one more bullshit comment about I can do it with a unknown nonce, with a whatever. You show me proof or you fuck up. One more or it's over. Deal?
I will show you. Okay, so I'm going to open my slides because they are public. I'm going to show you.
Other people want me to fucking do this shit. I don't give a shit. This is a one-off thing, and I fucking never do it again.
Of course, we're very glad to do it, and I'm very glad to talk to you. And I hope you don't. I think we've definitely got off on the wrong foot, and I really don't want you to feel offended.
I'm not going to jump through everyone's fucking hoops. Bullshit from Maxwell that we've had to pay money to get bloody disproven because the code's fucking out there. I'm not doing this every fucking time. I'm not going to sign every fucking key I own in the world. I've got the first fucking 9 keys. I've got the fucking Genesis bloody block. I've got the fucking code. I've got the fucking papers. I'm not going to go through fucking everything. I don't really give a shit whether people like it.
Okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that this has been disrespectful and it was never meant to be.
Comments about being able to bloody regenerate things on a single thing. Show me where. There are fucking thousands of transactions in Bitcoin every fucking day signed with pissy fucking bloody number generators. Show me one that's been compromised.
We have recovered tens of thousands of private keys in Bitcoin at my university. My students have recovered tens of thousands.
From single transactions?
Some of them from
single transactions, not brainwashed. Single transactions.
Well, most of them are
single transactions was your comment.
Well,
single transactions. No more bullshit.
Absolutely.
Fuck off.
Absolutely.
Fuck off. Fuck off.
Absolutely possible.
Fuck off.
I have more than 100 papers in cryptography.
Over.
And
fuck off.
Absolutely more qualified than
fuck off.
More qualified than you. Okay.
Fuck off.
Okay. So have you produced any evidence of traceability of every bitcoins? Or have you produced any, for the journalists, for the people who wanted to check about what happened to every bitcoins?
What do you mean, what will happen to bitcoins?
I mean, have you produced any evidence about, I have mined these bitcoins, I have sold them or transferred them here, etc. So have you...
They haven't moved.
That's what this is. That's what's on there.
I haven't moved them. I've sent them to Helfini and Zuku, and that was it. Full stop.
Yeah, but there have been many other early bitcoins which you have mined, right?
Which I'm not going to go into all of my ones. People are speculating enough. None of your goddamn business what the hell I own.
You know, most people, I understand that you are sensitive about this question, but most people who want to know about
I'm not selling
Satoshi Nakamoto, and I know cryptographers who have been claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto, And they told me if he is Satoshi Nakamoto, let him show us what he has done with his every Bitcoin. So most people are asking this question. So
I own them, they're mine, they're not going anywhere. I'm not selling, I'm not doing anything. The end.
Well, this is a sort of, you know, unsatisfactory answer, which many people find very unsatisfactory.
Okay, because I go up to fucking Branson and I go, where the fuck are you spending your money? None of your goddamn fucking business.
Well,
I mean, honestly, I mean, the other interviews are easy. This is just bullshit. Where am I going? My fucking money. If I'm not going to spend it, it's my fucking choice.
Well, I'm sure Australian tax authorities would like to know, but people...
Oh, excuse me, that's more hearsay and bullshit. We've been fucking negotiating with these people for years. It's how much tax I pay. There's no criminal investigation.
I think we're getting off
your fucking hearsay bullshit.
I think this isn't what we should be talking about as part of this presentation. I think we should separate those things. This isn't the interview. This is kind of more for verification and your thoughts on the matter. So have we finished the presentation side of it now, or
yes?
Okay. So I think we should. Well, because I think it's just getting a bit too heated. I think maybe we should just move on to the one-to-one interview. But
I'm not here to fucking come out and take bloody Satoshi as a mantle and fucking take over everything. I don't give a fuck. I'm coming here, setting things right so that my family, friends and whatever else don't get painted with this fucking shit. Then I'm fucking disappearing. Got it?
Okay. I think we should put an end to.
Our next speaker, John Matonis, was a huge name when I got into Bitcoin in 2013, and boy, a lot of impressive stuff. I had no idea. I'm not going to read it all to you. Wait, and I don't. Is John here? Oh, right there in front. All right, John. I'll just let him have some more time. All right, John Matonis.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, what a high-quality conference. Thanks to the organizers for inviting nChain. I'm John Matonis. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Strategy at nChain. And nChain stands for Radical On-Chain Scaling Solutions. nChain stands for creation of smart contracts using Bitcoin native scripting, which is, by the way, Turing complete. And nChain also stands for microarchitecture modular software, so not monolithic software. You may also remember my name from a year ago when I wrote a blog post called How I Met Satoshi. It was on medium.com. Received a lot of views, so I thank you all for reading that. I want to do something today that's a little bit unusual for a Bitcoin conference. In fact, I don't think it's ever been done before at a Bitcoin conference. I want to donate and turn over the remainder of my speaking time to a colleague of mine from nChain. He is the legend from Sydney, Australia. He is Mr. Bitcoin Dundee, Craig Wright. Okay, first thing is, where's my... Oh, I got the remote. Great. All right, so first of all, what's this about? Anyone know their manga? We have the genesis of a new century. So that's what that's about. This is genesis of a new century. Now, current problem. We have the which really four sort of issue. We have this little tiny scaling issue. We have nothing. Okay, see that whole screen? That whole screen is payments.
See that little pixel there? That's Bitcoin. That's what we are right now. We are right down there. That little tiny pixel is Bitcoin. We are nothing. We like to think we're something right at the moment. We are not. If we want to be something, we need to scale, and radically, not off-chain, not moving some of the security into side chains and splitting the model. We need to, right now, today, start scaling. In 2009, we had more scalability than we do right now. Problem. We have this idea. We have things that are being said. We have people changing the story. We have a lot of 1984 doublespeak. We have people telling us what we should believe. People lying to us about what everyone wants to think. And we're going to change that narrative, not because we want, well, an idea that someone has of an idea, but because we want scientific truth, we want evidence, we want facts, we want more. What we need the unseen. Everyone know our famous little economist journalist from France, the seen and the unseen. Bastiat, who people considered him not an economist. In France, the philosophes said he was not an economist because he says things that are so obvious. The seen and the unseen. We are seeing Bitcoin. We are not seeing the entire system. The entire system is everything we're competing with, which will crush us. We have other things that we're trying to build into the system that will crush us. When we split Bitcoin into millions and millions of pegged systems, when we add inflation, when we create these side chains that, by the way, are patented and are controlled and happen to be owned and happen to be managed and monitored, then we give away the security model. If 100% of everything mines Bitcoin and controls Bitcoin, that's a security model that is hard, that no government can take over, no company can take over, no one takes over. Bitcoin can scale. Right now. What is it? Well, we can't do that. There's no limit on demand. Good. I don't want a limit on demand. I want every person on this globe using not altcoins, not whatever else. I want them using Bitcoin. I don't want some bullshit argument about, oh, people will use it and it will be bad. Very simple, very easy, good. When every single person on this globe pays for their cup of coffee, pays for their whatever they want, every day using one single central currency, and I'll say central, one distributed central currency that is not controlled, that is hard money. That's what Bitcoin is about. Hard, central, controlled, no one can change money. The problem is central banks inflate. Who here actually knows what the Genesis block message was about? Who's read the Times page? What happened in the page? What was being discussed? They were considering buying the toxic assets. The government was saying the naughty banks who were just given billions to refuse to change their business model and risk their money. Again, and if they don't do it, we're going to buy them and nationalise them. So, great, we're going to incentivise banks further to make crappier loans. What a great thing. No upper limit to scale. Good. Economic game theoretic systems. This is what Bitcoin is about. It is economic. Timing models, 1 vote per CPU. This is a republic. It is not a demagoguery. It is not where people get to yell and scream and lie. And very soon, we're going to change that narrative. Very soon, people are going to discover that when you start lying and when you troll, that there are consequences. So, optimistic, positive, build, allow competition, allow free access to code, allow people to actually start competing, not building little walled bloody gardens. Bitcoin, I've got lots of people saying this is bullshit. It's in the code. Flood control, it worked. Why? Because of the value of it. It didn't work way back then, and people could have done these things, and Hell and Bear got their way and put this bloody cap on there. Quite frankly, I'm disgusted with half the community. Anyone know who Bear is? Bear is credit. Bear, that was his name on Reddit and whatever else. Bear was the third person involved properly running nodes and whatever else. You can look up who he is. He's a friend of mine. So one of the things that happened to him, he came on and started talking. Mr. Maxwell, others, ripped the shit out of him. And he's gone back to being a curmudgeon like I like being. He doesn't talk anymore. He doesn't get involved anymore. And he's a shit-hot coder. Better than anyone I have met in any of the core areas, by far. And he's no longer involved. Not because he didn't, his ideas were shit, but because people didn't like what he was saying and shot him down, made death threats against him, added things against his family. That's got to change. Flood control works. A lot of shit about this one. Guess what? You're all wrong. It is. What you're not going to get is you've missed it. There are actually, we have what is called a decider in Bitcoin. It follows some of the predicate logic of Gödel. Gödel, back around the time of Turing, wrote a lot of mathematics around the ideas of predicate systems. If you're a mathematician, you would know this shit. But not everyone is. So, Bitcoin is a 2 PDA. Now, 2 PDA, all those little squigglies there, unfortunately, once again, they're actually from one of the papers I've got coming out. Those little squigglies actually mean that it is Turing complete. I'm not going to explain that to you right at the moment. I'm going to say that. Anyone recognise what that is? That's a Wolfram 110. Anyone know what a Wolfram 110 is? It is the simplest Turing complete system. These are there. IP to IP transactions. Does no one look at the old code anymore? We keep saying this is not meant to be there. The market database in Bitcoin allowed IP to IP transactions. There was a reason for these. The whole idea is to have a POS merchant type solution. I should be able to go up and just tap something. And I don't even give a shit, honestly, whether my transaction has settled properly. All I care about is going up to the merchant, and the merchant will propagate my transaction. Why will the merchant propagate my transaction? Because they want to get paid. Network distribution. You're all wrong. Giant node versus outlying wallets. These are connectivity graphs. What we have in Bitcoin is as we get more and more connectivity, we get more and more reachability. This is how it actually works. What we have in Bitcoin is not all these other things where people are talking about power law, scale free, etc. They are not Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was always economic. Any node gets more connectivity over time. That is part of the protocol. The bigger your node is, the bigger the number of connection pools. If you run a Raspberry Pi, you are cutting yourself off from most of the network. In graph theory, it is not how many vertices. It is the edges that matter. It is not socialist. It was never, ever, ever designed to be socialist. It can't be. The bigger your node is, the more the edges you hold. That is a matter of economics. If you have a bigger node than the guy next door with a Raspberry Pi, you get better connectivity. Yes, those grey areas in the middle, that is the connectivity between the main nodes. It is that dense. There's a distance in Bitcoin of D equals 1.32. Later this year, I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but we're going to start releasing data. I don't know how because we have petabytes. Not sometimes, always. It is mathematically proven. Read the paper, read their results. Bitcoin doesn't get civils because it has a distance under 3. It has less chance of ever being hijacked than anything that has ever been created. There's a recent paper on routing in Bitcoin. It's wrong. Matter of economics. If you have a bigger node than the guy next door with a Raspberry Pi, you get better connectivity. Yes. We need to create simple solutions that anyone can use. We need to open up access, and we need to build wallets that are simple to use, that work on any phone. Not because you have a node, but safely because you can tap your phone to another person's and exchange. That's what we need to do.
All right, thank you.
Now it's time, I fear to tell, I've been holding it back so long, but something strange deep inside of me is happening. I feel unlike I've ever felt, and it's making me scared. Now it's time.